guys, so today's video is one we probably never thought we were going to have to make. I have Bill here for moral support and to kind of mention his side of this story. We had a miscarriage and it's been one of the hardest things we've ever had to go through, and I wouldn't wish this pain on anyone in the entire world, not even my worst enemy, nobody, because this is hard. So we were obviously very excited to find out that we were expecting, and we were happy and excited to tell our families. And at our gender reveal that we had on June 13th, we found out that it was a little girl. We couldn't have been more excited. I know I was super excited. I was so excited. I was jumping for joy.
Literally. But watch it, because you'll see how excited she was to see the balloon pop. They revealed pink. I couldn't really tell the color changed, so I looked like a doofus. But apparently the angle that she was at, she could see the balloon pop and the pink paint fly. So I don't think I've ever seen her jump so high as that day. And that was on the 13th. And then 9 days later we had a doctor's appointment.
June 22nd, I went in for my 20-week ultrasound, and Bill was watching on like Facebook video chat, like Facebook Messenger chat, because COVID-19 cases had spiked in Arizona and we were not allowed to have like a guest with us at that point.
The doctor's office was only allowing the primary patient to come in, so they were giving a little bit of extra time to allow us to set up a Facebook Messenger video chat. And so I was at my office, which was about 5 miles or less from the doctor's office, watching on my computer screen.
The ultrasound tech was going through, you know, trying to find certain things. She was telling me like, oh, here's the leg and everything like that, but she was struggling, and I could tell that she was struggling really bad. And my heart started racing like right then when she was struggling. She had mentioned if I had ever met the midwife Karen, who we were going to be seeing today, and I said I wasn't sure because I was new to that specific doctor's office. I had been going to one that was closer to my job, and so at this time she says, I'm gonna go get Karen really quick. And I look at her and I say, is everything okay? And she had a concerned look on her face. But so she said,
I'll have Karen explain. And so, of course, Maddie immediately broke down, and I was trying to reassure her that everything was going to be fine. And a minute or two later, she went and got Karen, and Karen came in.
And they were looking at, she was showing her basically that the baby had no heartbeat. She was showing her on the screen, she was showing her where the sound box would be, and I think she called it a color box at the time, but regardless, she was showing her that there was nothing. Karen sat me up and asked if Bill could hear her and told us that there was no heartbeat on the ultrasound.
At that point, I'm like, I'm coming. And I left my office, shut the door, jumped in my car, and was at the doctor's office in 5 minutes. And they let me in.
And they allowed us some time to just kind of be together and kind of process what was going on. You know, honestly, it was so much harder just being by myself, and I know it was obviously hard for him to hear it and not be there to see anything like in person. She basically told us that, you know, it was nothing that we did, it was nothing that we could have done to cause these kinds of things just happen, especially so late in the pregnancy. You know, I was 20 weeks at that point, I was in my second trimester, and these things are uncommon, is what she told us.
Every appointment was perfect up till then. The genetic testing was great. That's how we found out it was a girl. And the heartbeats were always super strong, 160 beats per minute plus. There was no reason to think that this was going to happen. Not a single reason.
So basically what was going to happen next was that I was going to have to be induced for labor. And she told us to take a couple days, but we had already intended to go to my sister's house that weekend. And at this point, I could not have gotten to my sister's fast enough. I needed my family at that point. Not that Bill's support wasn't enough, it's just no girl wants to go through this without her mom or her sisters by her side. We went home and Bill called Maya, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but she works at my job now, like she works with me, and her boyfriend also works there, and so we have a really good rapport in our family with my manager. And she knocks on his door and says, "Mark, I have to go." And he said, "Yeah, get out of here." And she came so quickly to be by our sides. And obviously at this point I had already called my manager and told him that we couldn't find a heartbeat, and he had basically said, "Just come back when you're ready." So we're home now, and Bill has mentioned to his aunt and uncle what has gone on, and they call our family on Bill's side. I called my mom and asked her if she could relay the message to my side of the family, but that I wanted to be the one to tell my sisters. We cried for a long time.
We still do.
Obviously we still do, but we cried for a long time that day. At some point I decided I want to go tomorrow and deliver, because I don't know if I mentioned it, it was a Monday morning when we found out, and so I said I want to go tomorrow. And so Karen was kind enough and everything like that she actually gave us her cell phone number, so then we could text her after hours and basically just tell her when we were ready and everything like that, because at that specific doctor's office the midwives will be at the hospital with the patient so then you kind of felt more comfortable knowing that somebody knew you as you were delivering your baby. So we decided that tomorrow was going to be the day, and we were going to go. So we were scheduled for 11 a.m. the next day on the 23rd. So Bill called his family, and they came over and did a blessing on us, and were there for us. And I cannot express how much it meant to us. So they just put blessings on us. Bill for comfort, and for me it was comfort and healing, because I was going to have to go through this whole process. Fast forward to the next day, on Tuesday, we're ready. I get up, I've showered, I'm fully ready to go. I've made a hospital bag, we've packed snacks, because we don't know what the whole COVID scenario was going to bring. So I didn't know if Bill was going to be able to leave the room at all, because I've heard different things.
And they also told us it could take anywhere from, once she was induced, they also told us it could take anywhere from 2 hours to
2 days.
To a couple days, yeah, to deliver. And so we didn't know what to expect. And so we got through to Karen and said we're ready. And then we got a call at about 9:45 that morning. And it was the hospital telling us that they didn't have any rooms. They didn't have any space for us. They might have space for us that afternoon. We weren't sure. They weren't sure. But that they would call us. So every couple of hours we were in contact with Karen, and she told us there's still no room. Finally got back to us later in the afternoon, between 5 and 7. We can't really know the timeline. But she said, we're not going to be able to get you in at this hospital, but there's a hospital not too far from here where our doctors from our office manage patients over there, but you won't have a midwife like myself. You'll have one of the nurses there, and they'll get you in. So we'll let you know when you can head that direction. So we headed that direction at about 9-ish.
Yeah, it was really late in the day.
We got there around 9 p.m. They gave us a room. It was a great room. It was had her bed, had a long couch for expecting dads to sleep if they needed to, a nice recliner chair, private bathroom. It was just a really nice setup for somebody that was there for the right reasons.
The doctors and nurses came in, even the charge nurse came in that night and, offered their condolences, offered as much comfort as they could. They used a drug called Side Attack to induce me, which is like a pill form that is basically implanted. And she basically implanted it and said, well, all we can do is wait now.
And you'll get another dose you'll get a dose every 6 hours. And the first dose came at about 11 p.m. was when you got your first dose?
Probably. So we knew it was going to be a long time.
But we got some rest that night. The nurse was just told us to go to sleep and try to get as much rest as we could, and she never bothered us throughout the night. I think she probably opened the door and checked on us, but she never turned on a light.
The next morning rolls around, and still nothing at about 7:30 when the nurses switched shifts. And I was like, oh man, like, they were right, it's gonna take a couple days and this is crazy, right? Because obviously my body wasn't ready for delivery at this point. I was only halfway through. So they said to expect the longest amount of time beforehand. I had been given some pain meds, like the IV meds that they put in, and those made me loopy, very loopy, and I was tired, and so it basically just put me right to sleep. Bill got up to use the restroom or something like that, and he said within minutes he could hear me basically screaming and moaning in pain. And he comes out and starts rubbing my back, and he's asking me if I want him to call the nurse. And I'm not able to answer. I'm literally just so much pain.
She's just writhing in pain, and I'm like, babe, do you want me to call the nurse? And she's not answering me. Babe, I asked her a second time, do you want me to call the nurse? She's not answering me. And so the third time I said, babe, I'm calling the nurse. And the nurse, they carry around little hospital cell phones, so we could dial her direct number no matter where she was, and she could answer. And she said, okay, I'll be right there. And she came in and immediately picked up her phone and dialed and said, we're going to need the doctor in here because we're going to be doing a delivery right now.
And I hear that, and as much pain as I'm in, my heart starts to race even more, and my ears kind of perk up because I'm like, excuse me? Like, you just checked me like 2 hours ago and I was nowhere near ready. And so then when I finally like come back to, because I'm still on drugs, I'm still on pain meds a little bit, so I'm still loopy and everything's going so fast, it's literally like a whirlwind. Bill's over here on my right hand side, and there's my nurse, 2 other nurses, and the doctor, who are all just standing there. And I look at him and I'm like, where did all these people come from? And one of the nurses, not my nurse, does a flush of saline through my IV, and it hurt so bad that I literally, like, if I wasn't clenching on to the like arm of the bed, I probably could have socked her in her face. It hurt so bad. And the doctor is now like at my feet, and she basically says, well, there's no time for an epidural now, is there? And I'm like, holy moly, like, this is not okay. So at this point, they give me more IV meds to kind of take some of the pain away. But it's nowhere near like an epidural where, you know, you basically can't feel anything. Trigger warning, TMI, I had to pee so bad. And I looked at Bill and I said, I have to pee. And he said, no, it's probably just the pressure. And I was like, no, I was like, I really have to pee. So basically, I tell the doctor and I tell my nurse, I'm like, I have to pee really bad. And my doctor says, okay, we'll just go right here. They put a plastic lining right underneath my tush and said, have at it, because they weren't going to allow me to get up to go to the bathroom. So they basically just said, go right ahead. Because at this point I was pushing, they told me to push when I felt a contraction coming on, and I wasn't comfortable enough to push because I was in fear of peeing everywhere. So they basically just said, empty out your bladder, do what you gotta do, and let's move on, pretty much. So I peed on the plastic lining, and they cleaned it all up. They wiped me down, put towels down, and I was ready to go at that point. I think it only took about 15 minutes after that I had delivered. We weren't ready to see her right away, so the doctor and nurse, they covered her with like a towel or blanket, I'm not exactly sure which one, and basically just immediately after she was delivered, they took her over to the little incubator thing that they had for her. I asked my nurse if she could confirm that it was a little girl, because in my ultrasound that was my ultimate goal, was just to confirm that we were going to be having a little girl. And she walked over there, said it was a little hard to tell, but that she could definitely tell that it was a girl. So it made it a little bit more heartbreaking, but also a little bit more comforting to know that the genetic testing had worked. I had heard like horror stories about women who thought that they were going to be having a girl, but then they had a boy, and vice versa. And I just didn't want to be that as well. So I'm going through way too many details, but that's just how it is. The doctor literally had to go elbow deep, probably, to, no, it wasn't that much.
No.
It felt that way. It hurt so bad, you guys. I didn't have an epidural. I didn't have any pain meds. It hurt so bad, and I felt everything. But basically, she told me that I needed to push out my placenta, because if she would have tried to pull it out, there was a chance of it tearing and ripping, and then they were going to have to go in and surgically remove it. So she didn't want me to have to do that, so she wanted it to come out as gently as it could. So I don't know, 5 minutes later, pops out, and I'm like in relief, and I'm like, huh, I did it. And she's like, okay, well, some of it is not out. So she sticks her hand in there, and she's feeling around, and I can feel everything that she's doing, and I'm in a lot of pain. It hurts real bad. And she's feeling around in there, and she finally gets it. And I was just like, whew, like, what a relief. That's basically my delivery story. She was born at 11:01 a.m. and she was 10 inches long and weighed 9.4 ounces.
She was born on the 24th of June, which is the same day as my aunt's birthday.
And his aunt has passed away, so we like to think that there's a connection between the two. A few hours later, we've gotten some rest, you know, and I wake up. Bill tells me to eat, and then we could bring her in if we were ready.
We met with so many people. The hospital at Chandler Regional Medical Center was, the people there were
amazing. The nurses, doctors, everyone we met with, they were amazing, and they made an awful nightmare a little bit easier to deal with.
as positive of an experience as you could have.
Yeah.
Consider.
We met with a social worker, and she basically just gave us this huge packet full of all kinds of support groups that we could go to, any kind of hotlines we wanted to call, you know, therapy sessions that we could attend, things like that. Anything for grievance we could use. And she basically just gave that all to us. We asked her what was the best way to tell my son, who's only 6 years old and doesn't understand death very well. Obviously, I've never had to explain it to him before, other than, you know, animals that we said, you know, I'm sorry, but they're not going to be around anymore when you go over there, which he doesn't understand. I'm sure he doesn't remember half the animals that have been in and out of his life. I'll insert a picture of the book that they gave us, but it was called We Were Going to Have a Baby, but We Had an Angel Instead. And we read it, and it was heartbreaking to read that and realize that I was going to have to read that to my son for him to try and understand what was going on. When we asked finally to be able to see her, our nurse, she mentioned to us that she wasn't going to look like a regular baby. She had stopped growing somewhere around 17 to 18 weeks, and that's where her progress basically ended. So she wasn't at the 20-week stage baby. She was prior to that, and so she was very, very tiny.
About the size probably of a Barbie doll.
Yeah, she literally fit into my hand. When all was said and done, she literally fit right inside of my hand. She didn't have the same coloration. Her skin color was different. She was just not developed properly. So they wanted us to be well aware of that, because she kind of looked like a little alien, but a cute one.
She had all of her fingers, she had all of her toes, she had her little nose, her mouth, ears,
eyes, everything. She just wasn't fully developed yet.
We'll insert a picture too of her
little hand.
Of her little hand, because it couldn't be more perfect.
It was very perfect. It was very tiny. It was about the size of my fingertip. But she was, as much as she didn't look like a normal baby, she still looked beautiful and perfect to us. And obviously we're just biased, but she was still very, very perfect. But we were able to hold her and love on her and give her that love that only a fraction of what she would have gotten.
They brought her out to us in a little perfect little basket, and they had a little dress on her and some crocheted blankets, a couple of those.
Yeah, and she had a little hat on.
Yep, a little beanie.
Yeah, very, very cute. One of the nurses came in. So this is fast forwarding to when the nurses switched back again, and our nurse from the night before came in, gave us a hug, told us that she had been thinking of us all day. Our day nurse came in, told us that we were getting a new nurse, and then somebody else came in, one other nurse came in, and she told us about her story of her miscarriage.
At about the same
around the same time. And she was telling us that, she never forgets about her little boy. She always remembers him, but she did want us to know that there was light at the end of the tunnel. You would never forget, but you would learn how to cope.
She even had a baby about a year and a half after losing her angel baby.
And so, it gave me a little spark of hope that this would be the only heartbreak that we would have to go through.
We're gonna get through it, and we're getting through it because of our family. And friends, and of course each other, and we're gonna try again.
Yeah, we are. We're brought some peace knowing that, she had family up there. My grandma, Bill's grandma, his aunts, his mom, they're all up there. And I'm sure they're fighting over her. Over who gets to watch her first. And, it brings a little bit of peace to me. We did have her cremated. And we've ordered an urn for her. I've also ordered a necklace that's also an urn. So we could just have her here at home with us. So she could be with me always. Bill ordered a beautiful frame so then he could have a picture, I believe, of her little hand at his office.
And it has her name and her birthday engraved on it. And then the urn that we ordered for the house is actually a teddy bear. We have a little memorial table for 2020 has been a real shitty year, okay? We have a little memorial table here at our house where we've got pictures of our loved ones that are no longer with us. And she'll be added to that as soon as we can.
As hard as this whole situation, life event has been, you do see some light at the end of the tunnel. We were told that we were going to have more bad days than good, which I've definitely had more bad days than good in the past 3 weeks.
But what we've been told is to definitely try again and don't give up.
Yeah.
And because it's such just a rare thing. And what a lot of people don't realize, and I've had to explain it numerous times, is that when you say you've had a miscarriage, it's hard to comprehend that we actually had a baby. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is we actually had a baby and we held her in our arms. And it wasn't just that the pregnancy didn't work, it was that we had a baby. And so that's what makes it even harder for us, is that we got to hold her, we got to see her, we got to feel her, we got to touch her. And so if you know somebody that's had this happen to them, they're in the 18-20 week range like we were, just know that it's different.
Not that any miscarriage isn't sad.
Of course.
It's every miscarriage is sad, especially now we've been through it. We understand it a little bit more, even ourselves. But yeah, so not only did I have a miscarriage, not only did I lose my pregnancy, but not hearing the heartbeat was heartbreaking. Especially because for a while, I was explaining to one of the nurses who, she actually went to go and grab one of the Dopplers to try and find a heartbeat, because I was convinced that that I had a tiny glimmer of hope, because I was still feeling movement, which is the whole reason why I had no idea. So she basically told me that because baby was still so small and there was still so much fluid, and there was so much room to move around, that basically that's why it still felt like I could feel her moving, was because she was tiny and there was still room. So that's why I had no idea. That's why it was even more of a shock, because I was like, no, there's no way I felt her move. Even that morning walking into the doctor's office, I still felt like there was movement. And so that's why it was just so much harder to comprehend. But yeah, just like Bill said, not many people understand that I had to go through the labor and delivery portion of having a baby. I delivered a lifeless baby. Not only am I going through the portion of, postpartum depression and stuff like that, but I'm also dealing with the grief of losing my daughter.
And now the focus is on healing, both mentally and physically, and then trying to get back into the same daily routines, just to keep our minds off of it. Because if we just sat at home and grieved, it would be easy to grieve, just sit at home and grieve. But we need to be around our family and friends and do things to stay active. And it's hard to even stay active with the COVID situation going on. We both like going to the gym together and working out together, and it's just a time right now that's tough. It's hard to do that. But I can promise you we will get through it.
We do have a name for her. And we are going to lay that name to rest with her. Her name is EVELYNNE Takako Doyle.
And we'll put a picture up so that you can see it. So we're getting through it, and one day at a time. We got this.
I promise, guys, the next video is not going to be this sad, and I have a bunch of videos lined up, but we knew that we had to make this video first. So, yeah.
Now you know why she's been absent for a little while. But she's back.
And so, thank you guys for watching today's video. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.